614 Magazine recap and Fjord's review. As of yet, he has not been to Mars. So here is my friend Josh reading from his short story, Montgomery Juno Phoenix. Sorry, I don't know. I'm just laughing. You're great.
Hey, everybody. So I feel bad because everyone else gets to read poetry and it's nice and concise, and I have to show up and ruin everything with prose. So instead of reading a whole short story, I'm just going to read two smaller sections from it, just to give a little background. So this story, by and large, just involves you have this 12-year-old. His name is Anderson. His dad had just recently died. His grandma is senile. His grandma doesn't remember that her son had died, and so she keeps calling the house. And his mom, Anderson's mom, doesn't want to deal with the phone calls anymore, so she's basically just throwing these phone calls over to Anderson, and then through circumstances, Anderson is now basically pretending to be his dad on the phone to appease his grandmother. So that's where we're at, and I'll just kind of go from there. This is weird. Anderson disappeared for 20 minutes every time Grandma Olfcheck called. He'd been chewed up and processed until all that remained was imitation Frank. He practiced maneuvering from certain topics of his mom. How's Jennifer? Oh, fine, just fine. Well, you know what she told me the other day? How could I stand between the two women of my life? Remember when you punched a hole through the drywall? I don't seem to remember it that way, Ma. Did the doctor ever get back to you with the results? This is a question Anderson hesitated answering each time. And though he did, he knew his grandma would forget and surely ask it the next phone call. There were always two answers rummaging in his brain when asked this: no and the truth. He would always answer the former. But the practicing helped. His answers became more assured, more confident. His mom would pull out home videos, and over microwaved enchiladas, Anderson would close his eyes and listen to the way his dad would raise the pitch in his voice when angry, speak faster when around his wife, and almost whisper when teaching Anderson how to swing a bat. He didn't want to ask non-senile relatives about his dad's behavior. It would taint the performance, become subjective and manic. Still, there were stories raised but never completed by his grandmother. Stories which, if she truly were speaking to Frank, wouldn't need explanation nor finishing. She spoke dangling idioms Anderson only needed to reach. What about the drywall? Anderson said to his mother one day while rehearsing. In your father's voice, his mother said. I don't want to ask, he said. In your father's voice. Anderson transported himself to a home movie. The crawfish boil, where he was first taught how to suck out the brains and the good stuff. Deflating commenced. What happened with the drywall, he said. You and your brother were in high school, Anderson's mother said. You both snuck beers down to the basement while your parents were away. It was when you were in your prime. You wrestled and you drank. What started out as a playful turned mean, and you ran Dave's head straight through the wall. You told your mom it was your fist and you tripped. She didn't believe it from the start. That's why she likes to ask. Why were they drinking in the first place, Anderson asked. As your dad, sweetie, as your dad. Why were we drinking? Anderson's mom scooted her chair close to her son, the orange peel smell of her hair more palpable. Anderson was only 12. He may have been impersonating his father, but that didn't mean he was any older. His mom placed her fingers on the back of his neck, her painted nails scratching below the ear. The enchiladas were cold now. Because you didn't know any better. It's what you did. Anderson couldn't imagine his dad not knowing something. By no means did he think he'd been conceived by geniuses, but still. There was no question left unanswered. Now, Anderson lost confidence in what he'd been told. His dad could explain away his sickness. It wasn't terrifying until it was over. But what if it was terrifying all along? I think I'm going to call her today, Anderson said. But can I get back to homework, Mom? Please, his mother said. Call me Jen. There was one home video Anderson watched the most. It was the Christmas before Anderson was born, his mom pregnant and his dad spry and bearded. They had gotten Frank's parents a new garbage disposal. This was 2 years before Grandpa Olfcheck died of the same disease which took Frank, and the men of the family decided to install it that night. Only they had all been drinking. Everyone had been drinking. Anderson could close his eyes, listening for a Frank he had never known. All his family would relate how rare it was for this to happen once Anderson was born. He tried to make connections between his father juggling flathead screwdrivers and a head-sized hole in the wall. His speech pattern was radically different as well. Well, Jesus, his dad said in the video. I'll just pour beer down the damn thing. If it comes out, we can just have someone below. Don't let a drop spill. Not a drop, his Uncle Dave said. Not a drop, everyone else repeated. Frank's laughter flailed across the kitchen as shots were passed around. He turned toward his wife, unassumed and sober, and kissed her deeply and unashamedly. He dropped toward her bulged stomach and began to sing, Cats in the Cradle and a Silver Spoon. Christ, Christ, Jennifer said. What's wrong with you? That's what you sing? Everyone else in the video was still laughing and attentive to the sink, but with his eyes closed, Anderson imagined silence as his father contemplated a better song to sing to his unborn son. There was calm in the world for a few seconds. It's the dad Anderson remembered best, the silent one, timid and conserved. But then Frank sang something new into his wife's stomach. Vile conchitos, my love. The rest of the family, sans Jennifer, began singing that same line repeatedly, a refrain for a song that none of them knew the verses for. Just, vile conchitos, my love, vile conchitos, my love, until the entire room brimmed with vile conchitos, and Anderson's mom huffed out of frame. The rest of the video focused back on the disastrous home improvement. They had to call in a professional the next day. But there's a moment near the end where the sound cuts out. True silence. Frank moved towards his mother and hugged her passionately. They both exchanged a couple of muted words, and then Grandma Olfcheck wailed, though because of the lack of noise, Anderson was never sure if it was laughter or tears. The video soon ended after. Thank you.
Okay, so friends in the back where the open mic list is at. Is it full? There's still 4 spots left. And we're in a room full of writers? Weird. Someone should write their name down on that list. Okay. So our last reader before the open mic is Pamela Yenser. She was a contributor editor on Microcosmos at WSU. She later studied at PSU and earned her creative writing degree at University of Idaho. An Academy of American Poets College Prize recipient and nominee for the Pushcart Prize and AWP Award, her work appears online at Connotation Press, Kansas Poets Index, Notable Kansas Poets, and in Kansas Quarterly, Poetry Northwest, Shenandoah, and a dozen anthologies. Long poems include Love Letter to Kansas, Pentacles, and Zipper Trip. Pamela lives in Albuquerque with John Kelly Yenser and the ridiculous Labrador Moby Coyote. So here is Pamela Yenser reading Fronts. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, I have to say Albuquerque was pronounced by my mother Albuquerque, and that's what we say now. It's Albuquerque, New Mexico. It's a pleasure to be reading here and to be reading with my family. And really appreciate everybody being here. It's nice to return to the campus after so many years. This is called Fronts, and it's a poem that previously appeared in an issue of Pivot magazine in a very different version. I kept revising, and now here it is. Fronts. The first squalls were disaster enough. Tomatoes bloodied the yard. The grass lay flattened by soft green cockleburs of ripe walnuts stinking up the holes that our bird dogs dug to escape the yard. I've patched up their work with chicken wire, snakes, stakes, and dirt, Lilliputian trench work. In the lull of tornado sirens, fire ants keep stalking up, ort by ort. It's a small world, our world, after all. I have a premonition this time that we're in the path of the wall cloud, a mismatch of zephyr and notice, south by southwesterly, blown and bruised, all up and down like those pinto-patched columns you and I saw at Delphi. If clouds were oracles, could they speak? Would they have us sacrifice the kids? Sensing violence, I start calling our children name by name. And now, you, in Chicago, I'm calling on you to listen how the walnuts are now popping off the tree out back, its trunk stripped, its canopy turned inside out, limbs shining like those cast iron ribs of Oldenburg's iron umbrella. How everything has gone dark, no light, no flashlight. My candle snuffed, and then the house sighing in and out as if breathing a quick prayer for those for whom safety seems as far away as you or heaven or the crib at the top of the stairs your son won't climb until I drag him by his miniature hand to where his sister lies, a bundle floating the rivers past her window. Then comes the black blockbuster, a giant thud, as a giant third of our 3-story walnut falls to earth. Fee, fi, fo, fum, crushing our fence, enmeshing itself in chain-link armor, heaving broken branches past us like spears. And that's when, I think, it happens, that the small house next door, the widow's, lifts a little on its lattice skirts, then sits down hard with a crash of kettles and frying pans, probably flying pans too. So I grab the baby. Her brother grabs me around my knees, and we 3 scuttle like field mice down the stairwell to the basement, under the metal table, between the washer and dryer. Hurry home, and we'll be here still. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, so we're going to start the open mic now, strictly 5 minutes, and if the spirit moves you during this and you're like, I want to read and I didn't put my name on the list, that's okay. Tap me on the shoulder, tell me your name, and I will introduce you. So first, my friend, John Doe.
All right, thank you so much for showing up, everyone. This is super cool. I'm going to read 5 small poems, ranging from very small to not as small. Let's just get started. You won't karaoke? That's okay. I love you and respect your decision. Golden Retriever. Strands of hair are all we have to keep this animal in existence. I won't let you go out of business like this. The taxidermist's worried face tacks my arm around your shoulder. His shelves tufted bare and knotted. Some things should never be propped up in dignified positions. You found her in the road close to home. The dust of memorized CPR, hourglass in your fingers. You ran your hand along her coat as if a pocket with instructions would appear. Stay-at-home dad dream. Girl in armor on horseback with billowing golden dreads, her mud-streaked bloody boots crashing your second-story bedroom window from the dewy gash of early spring, her stallion catwalking grass stains into the carpet, flipping its boy band mane. She extends her gauntlet with the swagger of Rapunzel's lead neck muscles and explodes out the window and leaps the fence to the backyard pool, freezing Elsa bridges to every last castle available. But every one of you boys chooses to stay here in the Pietà, waiting to be smooched. Or she carries you to some rom-com edition of Italy, where they speak fluent English, and your old crushes wink on your cathedral prof pics, and the toy shops sell packs of Pokemon cards, the old ones, from our generation. This one's called, I would perpetrate the century-long crime of imposing coal industry dependence upon an economically susceptible region for you. Enforce me by aircraft going down on the roadside wildflowers, capsize my feet steps into rock slides, my rock slides into closing palms, tucking necklaces into the earth's palm. Slip me away at your overgrown yard sale, terrify my switchback soul, enter my abandoned high school windows, and violate me like a sexist school dress code. Brush fire my lips, furrow my soily skin, grow things on me, lick deer salt from my back, a deerling's first step, first taste of dirt. And this one's a fresh one. I can't remember ever seeing Donald Trump's name in a poem. What the heck? I'm trying to remember when poetry told